Hey, good afternoon. This is Christy. I thought I would share a project that I am starting. I've never done something like this before, and want to stay up front that this is not a sponsored video series, but I am going to attempt to make my own quilted sneakers. A lot of people have been doing it lately. I found a kit through Shoemakers Academy. I can add the link. Again, not sponsored. I've purchased all of these materials out of my own dollars, so I will give you my unbiased opinion as to how this whole process goes. But so what I got a kit that comes with, purchased their book, has instructions, talks about all the different materials I'm going to need. I went ahead and bought shoe lasts because, well, let's hope I'm not just stocking my sewing room with more unusable supplies. But I actually have grand plans that I think I might make more than one pair of shoes if all goes well. We'll see how this goes. The kit also comes with a pair of soles, so nice rubber soles. It has the pattern. This particular kit comes with the pattern kind of pre-cut out of like a kind of stiff plastic. So I will be using that. It had two different styles. It looks like it'll make a couple different versions of shoes. This one was all pre-cut in my size, or at least as close as I could get to my size. I bought the women's size 9 kit. I normally wear an 8.5, but they didn't have an 8.5, so fingers crossed that it's not too big or too long on me, but we'll see. Other things that came in the kit, I'm still trying to make sure I know where everything goes. This is foam. I believe this goes in the part of the insole, like the cushion inside your shoe. I believe this is what they call the lasting board. This will go in between the sole and the inside of the shoe. It's kind of stiff, so it'll make the soles firmer. These are just kind of rubber. There's also the other materials. There's a bunch more materials in here. I think in this bag is what they call, there's a couple different kinds of stiffeners, including ones to stiffen the heel and the toe. And then there's a couple of sheets of this kind of lining. It's got like a poly mesh to it, foam, sticky back. So I think on mine, that's going to be the inside of the shoe. And then what I've chosen so far for colors, I have this print that I really love. Got the Tula Pink one. It's from her, I forget what it's called, the dinosaur line. See, it actually has like these pterodactyls on it, which are funny. I'm not really a dinosaur person necessarily, but I love the colors. It's like a gray background and these bright colors. So I'm going to use that for the main print for the outside of my shoes. And then I grabbed a nice pretty lavender for like bias trim around the edges of the sneakers. See if I can find, there were some pictures in here that showed kind of where things go. Maybe here, kind of like on this blue one. So that purple would be like that trim around the parts. And I'm debating on I think the toe is actually going to be the Tula Pink. I think it's going to be the purple is mostly going to be the trim. And because I think that white mesh will be on the inside. So I don't think I will have purple visible on the inside of the shoe. I need to look. So, and then the other things that I'm using, this is Soft and Stable, or maybe a generic alternative, but it's in my Soft and Stable bag. So I'm going to use that for the batting in the quilted shoes. And obviously the fabric didn't come in the kit. Other things that came in the kit, because I got their extended kit, whatever that's called. Because I could not turn down a whole bunch of tools. So this one came with eyelets and tools for setting the eyelets. That's for setting the eyelets. A bunch of needles that will be handy. There's like a hole punch. And then there's actually some like stitching chisels. So, which I forget whether I will need the stitching chisels with this kit, or if I would need those to do another one out of leather. And I actually have some scraps of leather that I purchased that this would be a great second follow-up kit. So this came with the kit with the supplies. I added on the shoe last. That'll help me form the toes and the heels. And if I make more shoes, it'll help me like form the leather of the shoes. And the other thing I picked up just from local hardware store and then online, I picked up some all-purpose cement. I think it comes in bigger canisters, but this looked like plenty to get me started for this. And some really cheap disposable brushes. Yeah, so I think that's where I am. I think my first step now is to quilt up my fabric. Yep, so I might take some video of how that's going, but I'm just going to do some straight line quilting, probably in a matching kind of silver threads. That I want these first ones to be just, you know, focus on the construction rather than on the decoration. So anyway, wish me luck. Okay, here I am, next day of the quilted sneakers. I have cut out most all of my pieces. I think I still have some toe puff and heel things to cut out, and also something with the insole. But for now, my next step was actually to join the sides. I've left, right sides, and then the interiors. The way I put my sneakers together, I didn't make one giant piece. I have a left and a right, so I had to join them at the heel. It happens that I am set up with my straight stitch machine, and I didn't want to add seam allowance and join them with a seam allowance because I think it would be bulky with all the foam. So my serger is set up. So instead of zigzagging, which I could have done, I decided to use a flat lock, which is actually, I think it's on the other page. This is what I was setting up. So with a flat lock seam, you actually stitch two pieces together. Like this is my test piece of some of my foam. You stitch them together like normal, and then you open them out flat. Let's see if you can see in the light there. On one side, this is obviously just a scrap. On one side, you'll see a series of like just stitches that go across. On the other side, it kind of looks like a cover stitch. Like I said, this was my test piece. I ended up deciding that I wanted the extra thread on the, at least for the inside of my shoes, on this white side. But basically this is what I did to join left and right. And with this, you don't have any seam allowance. So see, like it's cut. Oh, didn't. The cut piece here, actually. See if I can show you this on one of my pairs, which I have not kind of opened yet. So like here I have sewn the seam. I actually sewed this wrong sides together, and I haven't really spread it out yet, but now I'm going to spread this out flat. You end up with like no overlapping seam allowance. So I'll just kind of massage that flat. And then voila, I have a flat joined seam. You can also do this with a zigzag, to zigzag back and forth. But my serger was out, so I thought I would do it this way. Anyway, so that's my quick update. I'm gonna go on to the next couple of steps. I think next up is cutting some lining pieces. I'm gonna cut a piece to cover this back piece out of my contrast lining, and I will show you those updates soon. Thanks, stick with me. Bye. Okay, still working on my quilted shoes. Next little tidbit, I mentioned in the last video how I butted up the joints for the left and right sides of my shoes. And I have covered on the outside fabric, I have covered it with a strip of binding. This is actually made on the straight of grain rather than bias. I probably could have used bias, but I figured this would be plenty strong. For the insides of my shoes, I am using kit that I got from Shoemaker's Academy. It has this kind of mesh foam. It's a lot like the insides of commercially bought shoes. I didn't think ahead to make a one-piece pattern, so I have this two-piece one that I had to do the same seam and butt up against. And I used a stitch on a flat lock stitch on my serger to join them because I didn't have a zigzag set up. But that does give kind of two raw edges in the middle. And I'm not sure. I mean, that's going to be inside the back of where my heel hits. Like this is the inside of the shoe, and like, you know, my heel is here and the toes down here. I'm feeling like even though it's not a fray fabric, that it's going to, that it could rub raw over time. So what I did, I could have used more of the same fabric on the inside, but I also feel like this is kind of a different kind of fabric. So I feel like that might be too bulky in there. I went into my stash and I found some ribbon. I don't know if this is a good choice. We'll find out later. This is just, I don't know, basic red satin ribbon. And what I did on the first one, I did kind of the same exact thing where I just lined it up down the center and stitched on either side so that that seam is covered. This side, this brown side, which is actually a sticky paper, that will be fully enclosed inside the sneaker when it's done. So I'm not worried about that side. So here's what I did. So here's the seam. So first of all, flat lock. After you stitch it, you have to kind of pull it, flatten it out. And then to help position things, I have it's a wash away basting tape. It's actually, so it's wash away, but these probably won't get washed. But if they were, it would go away. This is handy sometimes for fiddly bits. So I'm just going to use a piece of that to help guide my ribbon. Cut that off. This is basically like a sticky stabilizer for embroidery. So and then the sticky side is down. I'm going to peel the paper off. Maybe. Carefully. Yep, paper is off. I don't know if you can see it. There's kind of a little bit of sticky wash away tape stabilizer there. Put the ribbon down over the top of that. And then I will just stitch up and down each side, and then it will look a bit like this. So it will be a kind of a smooth covered bit inside my shoe. Is this a good idea? I don't know. We'll find out. We'll let you know at the end. Thanks for following along. Bye. Okay, next step in my quilted sneakers. This point is probably my first commentary about the kit that I got from the Shoemaker's Academy. I feel like the order of operations is all over the place. I like the pictures in the book, but like I feel like the order in which I'm supposed to put things together is super unclear. So kind of, it's a bit of a brain teaser sometimes, that and flipping the left and the right. But anyway, be that as it may, here's where I am. I have my outers kind of put together. This is going to be my lining. I have its seam butted up and covered. I will at some point have to take the paper off of this. Another comment for the Shoemaker's Academy: you should need more options that don't have the adhesive on there, because sewing through the paper, the adhesive, it's not. I'd like to have the choice. Sometimes some places I think it'd be good, and some places it's kind of annoying. But anyway, so this kit. I've got some interfacing. This is like a sticky back interfacing. I'm going to use it to interface the inside of the outer shoe. So I'm just going to stick that in place, and then I should be, when I go to bind the edge with my purple binding, this will all be hidden on the inside. So let's go ahead and do that. And I did have a quick moment of panic earlier as I tried to figure out if I mixed up my left and my right. The good news is if I had gotten these completely backwards, then I can just flip it with the other shoe, because I know I got, anyway. So let's see, so I think what I'm going to do, to explain why this is kind of a brain teaser, I'm going to add the interfacing here, and then I still have to cut the toe and the heel stiffener. I think that will end up going, so it's outside fabric, soft and stable. this is the sticky back stabilizer for the whole shoe. Then there will be heel, and on the toe stiffener. And I think that will actually stick once I peel this is peel and stick paper here of my lining. It will kind of stick there, and then I will form the shoe. And then I guess I need to cut that to where I need to bind this at some point. So I want to make sure that that doesn't get bound in. So anyway, let's stick on the stabilizer, and then I think I might bind next, and then worry about the heel and the toe, because I don't want those going under the needle of my sewing machine. So let's try this. We're just going to peel this back. This is just sticky stabilizer. If you do any machine embroidery, it's probably not super different. It looks a little stiffer than a lot of it, but it does look like I should be able to sew through it. My cutting is obviously not perfect, but I think that's pretty good, and that kind of does give it a nice little stiffness there. All right, so I'm going to go off and do this on this shoe and the other one, and then I'll be back with the next step. So thanks, everybody. So what do you do if you're sewing through a whole bunch of layers and you don't know if your sewing machine can do it? You make a test. You use your scraps. So here's what I'm doing. Making a pair of quilted sneakers. I have a whole lot of layers happening, including my fabric, batting, which in this case is soft and stable. I have this lining that's also kind of got a foam. There's a layer of stabilizer in there. And then I've got, in some places, I will have this additional stabilizer to help with eyelets, plus binding. So I trust the sewing machine. It goes through an awful lot of things. But I've just pulled scraps out of my pile, and we're going to see how well will it just stitch through all this mess. Oh, and by the way, some of those layers have like adhesives on them. So first of all, this guy is a Juki. It's a TL98Q. It's similar to newer TL models that are out now. I have a walking foot because of all the layers. I don't think I can get this guy to bend over there, but I'm set at a little over a stitch length of about 2.2. I might go to 2.4 if I think it needs it. The tension's actually kind of low, which is useful when you're free motion quilting. And I can adjust the presser foot height if I think it's going to cause a problem. But I've been doing well so far. I usually use a size 14 needle. That's all I have here. Polyester thread. Let's see what this does. If it skips a bunch of stitches, I may need to go with a bigger needle. Now, I will warn you that other sewing machines, for example, my regular one with all the fancy stitches, would probably struggle. And you know what? That just... yeah, that stitched with no problems, no hiccups. However, if I had had a problem at this point, if I had skipped any stitches, which I did not, if it was looping, if it was getting stuck, then I would rethink my choice of needle, thread, needle size, tension. If your machine is really struggling, you can try to turn the flywheel by hand. Or see if you can borrow somebody's heavier duty machine. Anyway, I think I'm good to add some layers and start binding. So anyway, see you guys later. Hey guys, that shared the next step in my quilted sneaker journey. I am working through the Shoemakers Academy quilted sneakers kit. Here's them. Not sponsored. This is all my own materials, my own kit, my own money, all the rest of that. So no bias here. Next step I'm doing is I have the kit that has extra reinforcements to make a good pair of shoes. There's this layer of interfacing. It's got a sticky layer. I think we called it Super Tough. It's supposed to reinforce underneath where the eyelets go for the shoelaces. So first off, to be able to use this, you need to make your own pattern. I used the shoe pattern that they gave me, and what I did is I just laid it on a piece of paper. I'm making the low cut one, and I just traced it. I traced just enough to kind of be on either side of where those eyelets are. Those dots where the eyelets go. So I traced it on paper, cut it out. Doesn't need to cover the whole shoe. I did test with my sewing machine. I should be able to sew through this with all the rest of my layers. If it wasn't going to sew when I bind it, because I'm going to bind the edge, If that wasn't the case, then I would have needed to kind of trim off some seam allowance here to get it out of the way of the binding stitching, but I think it's okay. So then I have the shoe pieces are inside of the shoe and outside of the shoe, and then like one's for right and one's for left, and then you make the mirror image for the other foot. So same thing here, I did an inside and an outside, and then when I traced it on the back of my interfacing. I did, an inside, then the reverse image, and then the other one, and the reverse image. So I was able to get one set of them on about half of the piece that I have. So I think I have about enough stuff for one more pair of shoes after this. Okay, but anyway, so now I have 2 mirror images of each. It's paper, so I could write on the which is inside, which is outside, and the arrow is the shoe shape versus just the random cut shape, so I could know which way they go. So this is, I think this is my right shoe. Yes, I think that's my right shoe. And I've matched up a piece here and a piece here. And then the other shoe will have the other sides. And this is my outside fabric. So I'm gonna just peel and stick. And then I think and then that will just be inside the shoe for when I'm done. And then the next step after that will be to add my lining, wrong sides together, and then bind that whole top edge with some pretty contrast binding. And then I will take you along with me in the next step after that. I forget whether I do eyelets or whether I start stitching the sole or what comes after this piece, but I'm gonna get this done and be right back. All right, hey guys, I'm making some bias binding. I've already cut my strips. They're cut at the 45, so you make a 45-degree cut. I am making 1.5 inch wide. I am going to use one of these bias tape makers. So first I cut all my strips. I have joined them, joined on the diagonal, and I like to press the seams open. I think it's a little less bulky, especially in binding. Now the neck, and then I did also cut off the little dog ears. So I've got a little pile of, quilty confetti here. So next step is to press it. So first I need to feed this into the tape maker. If it doesn't feed nicely, then get yourself an awl. A lot of times these sets will come with one, and you can poke that down in here, and kind of force feed it through. What you want this to look like is you're going to want the 2 edges folded in towards the middle as it comes out. So sometimes when it starts, it looks a little wonky and you have to kind of fix it. You want these edges even here. Okay, and this looks good. So what I'm going to do here, let's see if I can get this all in the frame. I have a fairly small cutting mat with me today, but I'm going to iron it. So I really want the iron as close to this little like spout edge as it's coming out as I can get it. And then I will be pulling this side back. It will fold the fabric, and I'll move the iron along, and it will press it flat. Word of caution before you start, you may need gloves or finger protection, because if you get the iron on this metal on metal, very hot. So keep your fingers up here, and if it starts getting hot, be safe, set it down, don't burn yourself. All right, so I have my iron, I'm set on cotton. See if I can do this and keep it all in the frame for you guys. So iron is here. I don't have any steam, so this is just a dry iron. You can use like a pin or something to hold it in place if you need to. But then as I go, I'm just pulling gently, making sure it's feeding in flat. Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go. Like that. And you see what comes out is nicely folded bias binding. So I'll end up using this on an edge. It'll be folded around an edge and stitched. So yeah, how to make bias binding with the bias tape maker. Hey everybody, next step of my shoe is to apply some bias binding around the edges. This is actually the tongue of the shoe, so this is the toe. So this is actually the tongue that'll be underneath the laces. I have made a bunch of bias binding. I'm going to be attaching it just along this line. So 2 ways that you can do it with binding like this that is kind of not doubled up. You can either open it up, actually 3 ways I guess. You can open it up, stitch it down to the front, turn it around to the inside, and then stitch in the ditch or make a nice seam. That's one way. Next way is the reverse, stitch to the back first, flip to the front. If you do that, you wouldn't stitch in the ditch, you would just stitch along kind of the edge. That sometimes is the neatest. I guess there is a third way if you have a bias binding foot, or if you do a lot of pressing and sewing, is to just arrange the tape around the edges like so, and stitch it down in one pass. You do have to make sure the front and the back line up, otherwise you will have gaps where your binding is not sewn down. I am going to go with starting from the back, flip it to the front, top stitch in the front. My first step, this is the mesh lining that has the self-adhesive. I'm going to remove this and go ahead and adhere it down to my pre-quilted front. Okay, and now that I have done that, I think I may need to refine my lines a little bit, or decide if actually I think it's pretty good. Okay, so now starting from the back, stitch to the front, and I'll trim this later. Again, it's cut on the bias. I'm going to open it out. I won't actually cut a ton of bias binding here. I'm not going to actually cut it until later, just to make sure that I have plenty. And you can do a lot of pinning. You can also just adjust as you go. I am going to go with the adjust as you go option. So from here out, I'm going to stop speaking and probably will put this on a fast play, so you don't have to wait for all of the slow stitching. So quarter inch, or just kind of a scant quarter inch, by the way. I am ready for the next step in my quilted sneakers. I have bound my shoe part. This is, I think, my right, so that's kind of most of the right shoe, right tongue. This is the toe. This kit comes with heel and toe stiffeners, so it's apparently a heat moldable plastic. So what I've done, it didn't really come with a separate pattern piece for this, but I took my yellow pattern that it did come with. I needed to make it fit in the toe and not be in the stitching line. So I kind of traced, and I've been sort of playing with the paper to make sure it kind of fits. I think this will fit nicely in the toe of each. Actually, I may have to trim off those corners. I'll see that in a minute. Same thing with the heel. The heel is stiffer plastic than the toe, but I am going to cut these out and then fiddle with them on my pieces. Like I said, I've got stitching here with the binding line, so I think I'm going to end up having to cut those little corners off, but I'll make it work. They say that you can cut this with scissors, so I have my non-fabric scissors, so here we go. All right, so I have trimmed my toe piece. Let me show you what it looks like. Note I traced it from the pattern, but there's going to be some stitching, I think, around this edge as it attaches to the sole of the shoe, and there's a stitching line here and here, so the pointy thing can't go into there. So I am using the mesh from this kit that has a sticky back. So I'm just going to peel it back, and that's just my soft and stable that I quilted to. I don't know, next time I'm not sure if I would use the sticky and the soft and stable, but I think it will just make a nice fluffy shoe. Now I just want to flip that over, did I? Nope, okay. Just kind of stuff it in there. And stuff it in there, and then the sticky will hold it in place until I'm ready to assemble it to the thing, and then I can heat mold to make it like toe shape. So that'll have to be a separate video. So now I've got kind of the same process to do with the two heels, and then I'll show you what happens next. I'm working on my quilted sneaker project. My next step is to prepare to set the eyelets, which is where the laces will go through. The eyelets will go on the left and the right pieces here. This is, two sides of a shoe. So there's a couple of steps. First, I will need to retrace all the holes, the space locations where the holes will go through. Then after that, I need to set eyelets. I've decided to use some of these gunmetal colors. I think they look nice with the kind of the dark grays in my pattern. I tested it on some scraps. I was hoping, I've got this cool crocodile. It actually it punches holes and does like sets eyelets and some other little decorations. It's good for scrapbooking, and I can use it sometimes on fabric. When I tested it, I could use it to punch the holes, but not necessarily to set the actual eyelets. So my other option, the kit actually came with this is a hole punch right here. See, it's got that's hollow. It looks kind of like a pencil, but it's hollow at this end. I know it goes fuzzy every time I point it that way. So that would actually cut a small hole. And then this will help you set the eyelet. You put it in there and you hit it with a hammer. I think I might still use the crocodile for the holes, and then I will use this, and I have to go change location, find a different spot in the house where I can hammer, because I cannot do it on my I will not be hammering things on my sewing table. Anyway, so I'm going to start by remarking things using my pattern. I had traced the marks before, but they've long since faded away because I've been messing with it. So I'll retrace them, and then I'll grab a few pictures as I'm adding the eyelets. So thanks. Okay, to punch a hole using this crocodile on my fabric shoes, I have the hole marks. I have, I believe, 3/16 inch eyelets. So I'm setting the crocodile to the 3/16 mark, which should make So if you can see that, it makes that little blade drop down. So now what I need to do is just line up that blade with my mark for my eyelet, and then get down and punch. I'm gonna get down here close where I can see it. And I'm moving the handle up and down just so I can kind of test the placement. All right, and now I just, oh, I'm out of the frame. Now I just squeeze. Chunk, that sounded good. And hey, there we go, one hole. And then I'm not set up here to do my eyelets, but when I go to do these, see there's two pieces. What happens there is one goes down from the top into that hole, like that, and then the other one will go on the bottom, and then I use the eyelet setter to set it in place, and it will bend the metal and make it permanent. So let me do the rest of these. All right, hey guys, coming to you straight from my garage floor, I am going to set some eyelets. Yes, floor of the garage, because I don't have good surfaces for hammering things. I have 3/16 inch eyelets. They have two pieces, kind of a tall, which is this one, which is going to go in from the top. I'm supposed to jam this guy in there. I haven't done any of these yet, so you get to see up right alongside with me how well this works. And please tell me I haven't messed up my shoes at all. Okay, so these are really thick, so that's fun. It barely fits through. I have a lot of layers going on here. Okay, and now I need a short piece, which is this one. And it's supposed to go curly side down. And now I have this setter thing. I think it goes bottom to top, like that from the bottom. There's a little post. And this piece kind of fits on. Right, and now here's the moment of truth. We'll give it a couple of taps. Is that good enough? Oh, looks like, nope. It's going. I'm gonna have to hit it more. We'll give it, maybe I'm too timid with my taps. Now I'm hoping I'm not gonna like crack my garage floor doing it. Oh, that's better. That's better. Do you see that? Nice. One eyelet for a shoelace. Cool. Now I have like 23 more. So I'll show you what it looks like when it's all done. Okay, so my eyelets are in. I think one of the very last machine stitching steps here is I need to attach the sides to the front. So this really overlaps, sorry for the wiggling, here. This is the front of the toe. This is the side of one of my shoes. So I was double checking all the pattern, and I think I just need to overlap right there, pretty much right on the binding, and stitch from about there to there. And I'll probably kind of stitch up and back tack a little bit. And then after that, we start putting this thing on the sole and using the shoe last and trying to make this thing look foot shaped. So there I go. Okay, I am working on the uppers for my quilted sneakers. So I have attached the sides and my toe, and now I need to shape this. See, I've actually already done my right shoe, and you can see how I've got some stiffener in there that kind of gives the toe a toe shape and the heel a heel shape. All right, so let me show you how I figured out to do this. This kit comes with these plastic toe puff and heel stiffener heat moldable plastic. So this is the toe, it's pretty squishy. This is the heel, it's pretty stiff. I tried at first to put it in the shoe and mold it, and that wasn't a great, it didn't work very well because I think that the shoe was blocking the heat from getting there, so it wasn't molding the plastic. So instead, what I did on my right, which I'll show you on the left, is I am using the shoe last. I bought this as part of the kit. It's an optional add-on, so yeah, costs more, but I think I'm going to use them again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat these up. I have a heat gun. This is from my paper crafting supplies, but it's just a heat gun. Probably a hairdryer would work. and then I will heat it up till it's like moldy and then moldable, and then I will put it on the toe, let it form and cool, and then same thing for the heel. Okay, so let me show you how that goes. Apologize about the noise. I may fast forward through this if it ends up being too loud. Also, I'm using one of my pressing pads because I don't want it to melt my cutting board or anything. So this is hot, so be careful. Don't burn yourself. Okay, so here we go. Oh, okay. So that's the toe. So you saw I just sort of heated up until it got like really floppy, and then I could just sort of form it on there, and I'll give that a second to cool. And that will slip inside the toe puff in between the liner and the quilted part of my toe, and then I'll be able to stitch around it. Well, that's cooling. Let's do the heel. Okay. And it will go that way. Okay. Ooh, okay, that one doesn't get quite as curly as fast. All right, so we're gonna fold this around here like that. All right. And I think if you don't have a shoe last and you're trying to do this, I think you could just heat it up and kind of form it, or maybe make a ball of, like, I don't know, foil or something that's about the right shape of your toe and your heel, and kind of use that as a form. But let's see if I peel this off. This one's cooled down. See that? Kind of holding its shape now. It's back to being crispy. So I'm gonna stuff this in here. Remember, my lining has the sticky layer, so I'm kind of peeling back the sticky. And now I need to kind of get this in here. And I need to make sure I leave some seam allowance, because I'll be stitching through that toe around that toe to get it attached to my insole. So it should just kind of jam in there. And then stick that in there. Kinda. I think that's kind of doing it. So, right. So now that's kind of giving it toe shape. So not perfect, but it's getting there. I think that's about how the other one looked at this stage. And let's do the heel. Is the heel cooled down? It's cooled down. Kind of peel that off a little bit. All right. So it's cooled down. It's now kind of heel shape. Same process. I'll peel this back and stuff it in there. The technical term is stuff. We're going to stuff it in. All right. And I want it to go up there pretty high. All right. And if I try to get this on and I don't like the shape of it, I can always heat it up and try again. So now what I should see is that it's going to be a pretty snug fit like this on the last, but my other one was kind of like this too, but it sort of fits around there. And the next step will be to start stitching it to the I forget what they call this. It's like the insole. This part goes inside the rubber sole, but I will stitch that on. And when I'm done, it will look a lot like the right. So make sure I'm making a right and a left, which looks like I am good. All right, I'll see you after the next one. Okay, next step in my quilted shoes is to sew my upper to the I still haven't looked up the term for it. I don't know. It's kind of the insole. This part goes inside the rubber sole, so it's kind of a stiffener that fits in there. Okay, so to do this assembly, I want to stitch my upper to this, and then I'll glue the whole thing into the white. So, but let me show you how I'm going to go about doing this. I've already done my other foot. So first off, I used the pattern. Let's see if you can see the dots. The pattern has stitching holes marked. I went ahead and marked them with my awl, but I will say I didn't poke all the way through because it was kind of intense to do. But this worked fine on the first one, so I'll show you the method I used anyway. Is this best? I don't know. My first pair of shoes. We'll find out. But I just poked the hole so I can see where the marks are. Second thing, I marked these little dashes here with a pen are about where the binding edges will match up. So I'm going to use those as a match point, and then I've marked the hole that's mostly in the middle of the back heel, and I'll match that up with the seam down the back. So first thing I'm going to do, I marked this in such a way that it faces plain side out. There's a print side, but it's going to be hidden inside the shoe. I'm going to use just safety pins to kind of pin those together so I don't poke myself while I'm stitching. And this is, I will say this is kind of a weird process to stitch something like this because you're going from vertical to horizontal. Just want to make sure that heel puff is out of the way so I don't have to stitch through it. Because there's that stiffener is in there. All right. So, okay. And it's a big safety pin so that it will go through. Now I did poke all the way through those match points. So this is just to hold it in place, make it a little easier for me to line up the dots as I go. So one, we'll do one here. Make sure that I'm getting things stitched more or less evenly all the way around. These are my quilting safety pins, so they're pretty stiff because they're meant to go through layers of fabric. Ugh, okay, that's a tight squeeze. And then we'll do the other one. And now I also marked the toe. Ooh, this is a hard one. Okay, don't poke yourself. There we go. That is going to be a preview of what it's going to be like to sew these together, but I'll get to that in a second. Okay, so I did mark the toe, but I'm not going to pin the toe because that's actually where I'm going to start sewing. And you know what? Now that I look at that, that doesn't feel right. It feels like it's too loose. So I'm going to move those. Those are not in the right spot. Maybe I'll just stick with the toe and the heel on this one. I think my marks are off center. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start stitching in the smack dab in the center of the toe. If you bought the kit from the same kit that I'm using, it came with waxed thread, which is, I'm going to use that. It came with a bunch of nice heavy duty, like upholstery leather type needles. This is the one that was working for me, but there's several sizes. Actually, the next big one up could also be good. These look really huge for getting in small spaces, but you know, and that one's kind of flat. Anyway, use whatever is comfortable for you, so, including other options. So I think there's a method to use the stitching awl. It's got a hole in it. You'd run the thread through there. It's called Strobel stitching. Tried that on my first one, gave me a lot of trouble. So this is what I'm doing instead. We're just going to stitch this like with a regular whip stitch. We're going to use the needle. I'm going to cut myself a length of this waxed thread. Whoop! And I'm going to drop it on the floor. Okay, so I'm going to cut myself a length. And this is going to be just like any other kind of stitching. So tie a knot in the end. It kind of feels like dental floss or something. This is interesting stuff, but and I'm going to leave that tail in there in case I need it for something. I'll trim the tails off later. Again, I probably just did that off camera on accident. Okay, so I've threaded my needle. Okay, so I want the knots to be on the inside. the next thing, since I didn't poke all the way through, I'm going to be stitching from the outside through my spot, and then to the inside, and then out. And I'm going to end up doing like this sort of just a whip stitch around. What it looks like when I'm done, it looks like this, which feels a little weird when you first get going because it feels like it's way too loose, but also you're stitching something vertical to something horizontal, so it's a little different than normal sewing. All of these stitches here, I'm trying to keep them about 1/4 inch from the bottom. It's not, my stitching isn't perfect, but it'll also be covered with glue, and it will be glued and stitched to that sole a little higher than that, so it will all be covered and encased. So, right. So the first thing I actually need to do, hey now, what happened to my, oh, there we go. I'm on the toe. I actually want to start in the middle of the toe, which is about here. And I do, in fact, want my loose knot to be hidden inside, so I'm going to go through it from the inside to the outside first. And this is the trickiest part, is sometimes getting through that board. It does just poke through, but it takes a little finger strength. So if you've got a better method, feel free to try a better method. So the other thing I found that helped a lot, I have these silicone kind of grippy finger thimbles. They're not, you would poke right through them, so they're not going to help you with protecting your fingers from the sharp end of the needle, but they are grippy, so they are good for pulling on the needle. So since I'm on the outside, let's see if I can do this on camera. So I got my knot on the inside. I'm, in fact, at this point, going to work my needle through. I'm sure somebody can tell me what I'm doing wrong here. All right. Did I do that right? I did not do that right, did I? Yes, I did that right, because I want to go in from the inside and out through the outside. Where's my mark for the center toe? I'm just to the right of the center toe. Let's stop and put my finger grips on. I bought these in a pack of a whole bunch of them, and they come in different sizes off of Amazon. They're silicone, they're pretty squishy, so they don't really get in the way of using your hands. There we go, but they're a little bit more grippy. So, all right, so I'm at the center point. I'm one off of the center. This first one feels iffy. We're gonna go here, and we're just gonna jam it through, right? Okay, and then I want to pull it up straight. There I am. All right, and now I whip around to the next hole. Oops, getting clumsy because I'm trying to do this in front of the camera. So thread is out here. I'm going to go around the outside through the next hole mark, which is here. Okay. At the beginning, this feels awkward because all the pieces aren't really staying together yet. That will change as you get moving and as the parts start holding together. So let's do another. I'm gonna have to switch to going to the inside, putting my hands on the inside of this shoe here in a second, but see, I'm trying to stitch about the same 1/4 inch distance away because I'm lining up from here. Okay, and then pulling it tight enough, but not too tight, and then to the next one. And careful not to get my finger in the way. If you need to, you can use something inside the shoe. See here, I'm going to start reaching to the inside. I'll have to do this for most of the toe. Use your pink grippies here to pull. All right, and I'm going to continue for a while, and then I'll show you how it's going. I'll tell you what, the first one took me probably about an hour. Maybe this one will go faster because I've kind of got the pattern of it down now. But I'm going to turn on an audiobook and just sit here and chill and listen to that while I stitch this So I'll show you my progress once I get part of the way around the foot, so you can get a better idea of how it looks in the middle. All right, welcome back. I'm still working on my quilted shoes. I am getting close to the finish line. See, I was doing a test fit of the sewn up shoe with elasting board in my soles. The next step is supposed to be to glue the shoe upper into the sole, and then we stitch it, and then it's nearly done. But I think I want to do one extra step. So because these are raw edges inside, the outside is going to be glued, but this inside is going to be raw edge. I mean, there'll be a foot liner in there, but it makes me nervous, especially with those binding bits, because that's just cotton and there's no hem on that. So I am going to take some fray check, and I'm going to fray check on the inside. I'm not sure if this is absolutely necessary, but it seems like it could be a good idea. And apparently I've not opened this bottle of this before. What kind of extra nozzle is that? Fabric glide out. That's okay. I think I'll be fine with this. So this is just, if you've never used this stuff before, this is really useful on cut edges or buttonholes, stuff like that, where you're going to have some raw fabric that you don't want to fray. It literally stops the fraying. It's just kind of a liquid and it'll dry. So I'm going to see if you can see me. You probably can't see me. Squeeze it on in there. This will be inside the shoe. Coming out. Oh, maybe I have to cut it open. Huh. Unscrew, blue cap, puncture with a pin, or snip off. Huh. Well, not my fabric scissors. Didn't realize I had to cut that tip open. Just gonna cut a teeny tiny tip open. There we go. Now I should be able to get some out. All right. Is it getting wet? I feel like it's still coming. Is it coming out yet? Nope, might gotta cut out more. Still didn't get it cut open. Sorry, it's off the screen. I know you can't see that. Nothing's coming out yet, so I don't think I cut down far enough. We're gonna try it again. There we go. Oh, yeah, that's dripping. That'll do it. And I am protecting my cutting surface with a silicone mat that I use for like paints and glue and stuff. So I'm just going to kind of run a bead of this along the cut edge, telling that it's getting a little wet. And it's kind of like a real thin glue, or sort of a really thick, what do you call it, starch. And it'll just kind of keep those edges from fraying. And most of it's like this mesh, I don't think will fray. I'm mostly worried about like those purple edges. Yeah, and there's some. So let's do the other shoe. So just kind of have these test fit in here. Yep, so I don't know if I showed you the final stitching on that. I actually had to take it out and redo it at one point because it was getting crooked. I think it's still a little crooked, but not so much that I'm going to redo it again. I think I am happy with the way these are. I think actually a little dot sometimes of fray check on like a knot sometimes is useful too. Keep those knots from coming undone. All right, should be good for that. And then I need to let that dry. Okay, while I let that dry, I set those out of the way. And then next thing is contact cement. I need to apply it both to the inside of this and also to the outside of these guys, and then they'll get glued together. You have to put contact cement on both sides. I am using this barge, and I have, this is what my paper plate is actually here for. It might not stick to my mat, but paper plate really should be safe. So let me pause for a second and get set up to. Okay, here I go with the adding of the cement to glue my soles to my insoles. I got this at the hardware store. It was recommended online. We'll see how this goes. I bought a pack of these cheap brushes on Amazon. It was like a couple bucks for a crazy large number of them, 20, 50, something like that. Ooh, let's get those extra bristles out of the way. Again, disposable paper plate. This purple is a silicone mat, which probably won't stick to the cement. I use it for like glue gunning and stuff. I also have my heat gun handy in case I feel like it's taking too long to dry. So again, we have to apply this stuff to both sides, both this and the shoe itself. Pop that thing open. I don't know if I just squirt it in here. I don't do a lot of contact cementing here, so it's yellow. I do know I need to watch, make sure I don't get too much of the yellow on my shoes where it's going to show. Let's see. I'm supposed to spread this around. Just kind of trying to make an even coat. I guess it doesn't help to get it in those grooves there, does it? I'm gonna need a lot more than that. Don't really want to get it on the outside of the shoe either. And by the way, my window is open. This stuff is pretty stinky. You definitely want to do this either outside or in someplace with some good ventilation, because whew, I'll be high as a kite after this if I'm not careful. Oh, there's strings. Okay, watch the strings. Good news is if it starts drying on you, perfect. You want it to dry before you can stick the next layer on. So what if I stick it straight on the brush? And this is kind of a new experience for me. I've not made shoes before, quilted shoes, but I've been interested for a while. So I thought this would be a fun project. Hoping I can get these finished and wear them to my Quilt Guild retreat next week. So wish me luck on that. I will definitely be showing them off as soon as I can get them finished. All right, and I'm going to keep going with this rather than have you watch me for 10 minutes as I spread glue. I will report back when it's time to put the two sides together. All right, so following along, and I have got the contact cement in my soles back here. I just realized I think I forgot a step. I was supposed to put, while my shoes were in the soles, mark how far up to glue. So, whoops, that'll be fun. I will have to make do. I think my intent here is just, I will just cover the stitches. And then after because the glue is not the only thing holding these shoes to the soles. There's also actual additional stitching through the cup sole into this into the fabric, so I'll do my best from here. I mean, there's not much I can do about it. I already have glue in those, and if I stuck these in there now, it would probably be a mess. So yeah, I will contact cement the bottoms and covering the stitches, and then we'll go from there. Hopefully this will all work out. Wish me luck. Okay, let's see how this goes. I have applied my contact cement to my soles and to my shoes. Now I think it's a matter of putting one side to the other. I don't know how repositionable this is. So let's see if I can get this exactly in place the first time. This stresses me out a little bit, honestly. Okay, one. Oh, it's out of the frame. In. Ooh, in. Get in there. Yikes. It's sticking on the way in, so that's tricky. Okay. I think, oh, wow. Okay, good to know. This is like tricky here. I think I need to get it down further. The toe is sticking funny. Like it glued itself too far up. Let's see. I'm gonna try to shove it using the shoe last to kind of force it into the right spot here. All right. I guess I could probably use if you don't have the shoe last, you could probably use your foot too. Push down. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. I shoved the last in there. Push down. I'm trying to get it good adherence to the bottom. It feels like it's kind of popping around the toe. I have a feeling I'm going to go back and be adjusting that toe after I get it sewn in place. But, okay. Okay, well, I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm going to do the other one now. Sweet. Okay, so, note to self, the toe will be tricky to get positioned correctly. Oh, it looks like a pair of shoes though. This is pretty fun. All right, let's do it. Number 2, sole number 2, glued all over the place. Let's see, I gotta get trying to both line this up and do it where you can see it on the camera. I'm trying to get the corner to the corner without touching a whole lot else. Okay, and I'm kind of squeeze it this time. See if I can get it down. There we go. That's better. See what I'm doing? I'm squeezing it, keep it away from the edges while I work on the bottom. Definitely worth doing that. Okay, I'm getting close to the toe. I feel like the toe, I'm going to pull back a little bit. It's a tight squeeze. Okay. I think I'll just do the same shoe last trick on this one. You know, if you don't have a shoe last and you're trying to do this, you just probably stick your foot in there, right? Like that seems like it should work. Don't get glue on yourself, but all right. I'm using that as leverage. Push down, push around. I want this to be glued on there. That's honestly, that's looking pretty good. That's almost, by the way, it's almost wearable at this point. This toe is better than my left. My right toe turned out better than my left. My left is a little gappy, but that may be okay. Because the last step, which will be after I let this kind of cure, will be to stitch, and the stitches, it'll actually be thread going through this little line. I'll poke holes and stitch it through, and that will really, really hold things in place. All right, shoes. Okay, everybody, I am now on one of the last steps of my shoes. At this point, my shoes have been glued, and I am now stitching the soles to the uppers. So what I'm using, the stitching awl, it's like a regular awl, but it's got an eye in the middle, like a big fat needle. So if you actually look at that Shoemakers Academy YouTube channel, they've got some good videos on how to do this. I don't want to give you the full tutorial here because it's pretty much the same, but so I've already done a few stitches, but I'll show you what I'm doing. I've got half the thread, half the thread is on the inside, half the thread is on the outside. So you can keep it in the frame. Okay, so I'm going to stab this into the shoe, keeping my fingers out of the way on the inside. I've been just using my thumbnail to kind of measure so I get them about evenly spaced. Not worried about them being too perfect. I'm not a machine. My fingers are out of the way on the inside. If you're worried about it, you can use something else, but I'm just feeling. But I basically just shove it in there. Oh, got it. Pokes a hole. And then see on the inside, it's pulled the thread through. And I'm going to back it up a little bit so I get a little loop there. And this is the other half of the same thread, but I'm stitching with it from the inside and the outside. So I'm just gonna manually pull that through. And now I'm gonna back the all out. And then, so now I have thread on the inside, thread on the outside. I'm going to give it a good tug. That's the inside. I have noticed that I need to check on the inside, make sure I'm not getting any loops, but you can kind of see it looks like sort of fat stitches in there. And then I just repeat. I do have a little latch hook handy for when I get into the toe area in case it gets tricky on the fingers. But I think that's what I do. I just keep going all the way around till I get to the end, and then I will, when I'm ready to tie off, I will just tie a knot on the inside. And then after that, I need to make the final insole, and then I'm about ready to wear them. I'm getting excited. Talk to you soon. Okay, I need to make my insoles for my quilted sneakers. My kit came with these foam ones that have kind of that mesh on them, so I'm gonna go ahead and use that. I just need to trace my my footbed on each, make one of each, and then cut it out. I don't actually know. Let's play with it. How well does this cut with it? Well, I actually should cut pretty nicely with rotor cutter, but this will also cut. So I'm gonna decide, should I do this on? Oh, maybe we'll do it on the back. Just gonna trace around it, and then I'll cut it with the rotary cutter. You see that? Just figured the pen would probably roll better on the foam side than on that textured mesh. That's one. We got a right and a left. I think the instruction book talked about making a different kind of insole with using some more of your like pre-quilted fabric. I've seen online you could use some EVA foam, however you say that, EVA foam. I think this is supposed to be memory foam, or you could even just like buy an insole, especially one with some support to it. I'm gonna freehand this. If you're not comfortable with freehanding, then be careful, or maybe use some scissors. I think I'll be fine. I'm just gonna pay attention to where that blade is going and just cut around it. Actually, if anything, I'm a little off on the outside. Okay, so I can get a good angle on this so I could see my line. Dum-de-dum-dum. I'm going to speed this part up so you guys don't have to watch this quite so painfully. I might, in fact, actually have done better to use my little bitty rotary cutter rather than this big one. Someplace I have one of those little small ones, but this is fine. It's not perfect. I actually think it might need to be trimmed a bit to fit inside the shoe. I won't know that until I get this part done. I also kind of wonder if my Cricut could cut this stuff out. It might be a little thick though. All right, so that's one. Let's do two. If you ever freehand things with a rotary cutter, it's really not that hard. The trick is to keep your eye just on the front inside of that blade. It's not the whole width, it's just the part that's hitting the ground, that's hitting the mat, that's doing the cutting. And then, you know, reposition things so you're generally cutting away from you and not trying to do this business. Ooh, as I hit the camera. Sorry about that. Make y'all dizzy. All right. And sometimes I'm better than others. This is showing every little wobble. All right, there you go. The long straight sections, no problem. All right. we go. I have no idea. I guess I could cover these, but I don't know if that would be beneficial. I guess I could cover those with fabric. But instead, I think I'm gonna just see what they feel like slipped into my shoes. See, stitching is all done. So we'll close the blade. Stuff it in there. Yeah, kind of a tight squeeze because I think it'll be okay. These shoes don't really have any like arch support, so I could cut a little piece of foam to stick under there to help this out, but I may have to walk around in them and see what I like. And I may have a pair of insoles from an old pair of boots. I'm gonna try those out too, see if those are any better. But the yeah, I would say I could glue these in also, but I don't think I'm willing to commit to that yet until I know for sure how comfortable this is. But yeah, looks like shoes. Gotta add some laces, and then maybe I will get a picture of them on. So here we go. Okay, look you guys, completed shoes. I made shoes. Can you believe that? Okay, stitching. These laces are really, really long, but that's okay. Yeah, here they are. They're actually pretty comfy. They're cushy. Yeah, there they are, completed shoes. Thanks for following along with me. Let me know if you guys try to take on this adventure or have any helpful hints for if or when I do it again. I'm sure I'm gonna do it again. Happy sewing and cobbling, everybody. Bye.